So I first came across this mic a few years ago when I was first building my studio, and I have to admit, I was skeptical. A $500 tube mic whose main marketing strategy is that Taylor Swift uses it on albums like this? Really can't be that good. Well, I finally got one, and yes, it really is that good. This is the Avantone CV-12 modified by Black Lion Audio. Hi there everyone, my name is Jake and I'm the chief engineer and producer here at Sawmill Recordings, and I have another budget mic review for you guys today. We've just jumped calibers a little bit because most entry-level tube mics are about $2,000. It's $500 for the base model, like I said before, and it's $700 for this upgraded model, and it really seems like a steal, and I've yet to see an all-encompassing review on it, so I really hope you get something out of it. The Avantone CV-12 is a take on the famous AKG C12, but with Black Lion Audio in the mix, it becomes a bit of a different animal. It boasts an optimized circuit for lower self-noise, higher headroom, and flatter frequency response, which were all sorely needed upgrades over the original, because the original had this really terrible high mid bump, and it just wasn't really a balanced mic. It also has a 10 dB pad and an 80Hz high-pass filter on the body. BLA also swapped out the 32mm K67 capsule with the 34mm KC12 capsule, which not only is more in character with an AKG mic, as you can find those in 414s and the original C12, but you can also find them in mics like the Rolls-Royce Colaris. It serves to bring out the lows a bit more and tame the highs as well, and it's a welcome change in my studio as most of my condenser mics, including the one I'm using right now, are also K67 capsules. Naturally, as it's a modern tube mic, it has multi-pattern capabilities. As you may remember from the B1 review, the way that this effect is achieved is that there's two capsules, one behind the other, and you change the pickup pattern by changing the polarity and the voltage going across those two membranes. And this is selectable from the power supply, which not only has a very sturdily stepped switch for the 9 patterns available, but it too has been optimized by Black Lion Audio for lower self-noise. In layman's terms, what this all means is that this microphone is very versatile, but not quite documentarian in nature. It's meant to flatter the sound source a bit, not necessarily capture exactly what's in front of it. We can see this in the frequency response graphs. When we put one against the other, yeah, there's quite a difference. But when we put one against a U87, yeah, that's an even bigger difference. Notice how it's all flat there? Yeah, very honest, very colored. Again, this is all pretty standard for tube mics. That's why we like them, that's why we use them. But Black Lion Audio may well have modified themselves into something that punches a bit more above the price point. It comes well packaged with a nice faux gator skin case and a velvet-lined box for the mic itself. The included cables seem sturdy and are more than likely easily repaired and replaced. The shock mount too seems pretty well designed and does its job well. I like the open face design for ease of proximity effect use, and while I haven't had to take it apart for maintenance, I'm sure it's pretty simple to figure out. So with all that being said, let's see how it sounds on some sources. Our first test is a test of the 3 main polar patterns. As you can see, I've set up the camera so it's pointing down at the mic so you can see my exact position relative to the capsule, which I'm indicating now. It also kills 2 birds with 1 stone, as I'm using it for a neutral voiceover right now so you can hear how it sounds on a spoken word source. As I walk around the mic, you'll hear how it sounds and how it rejects while I read an excerpt from Henry David Thoreau's essay, Walden. The mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation. What is called resignation is confirmed desperation. From a desperate city you go into a desperate country, and you have to console yourself with the bravery of minks and muskrats. A stereotyped but unconscious despair is concealed even under what are called games and amusements of mankind. There is no play in them, for this comes after work, but it is a characteristic of wisdom not to do desperate things. When we consider, to use the words of Catechism, is the chief end of man, and what are the true necessities and means of life, it appears as if men had deliberately chosen the common mode of living because they preferred it to any other. Yet they honestly think there is no choice left, but alert and healthy natures remember that the sun rose is clear. It is never too late to give up our prejudices. No way of thinking or doing, however ancient, can be trusted without proof. What everybody echoes or in silence passes by as true today may turn out to be falsehood tomorrow, mere smoke of opinion which some had trusted for a cloud that would sprinkle fertilizing rain on their fields. Now you may have noticed that of the 9 possible polar patterns, I only tested 3. That's because these are the 3 most widely used, and the other 6 are comprised of 3 subcardioid and 3 hypercardioid options. These are pretty specific and useful in the right situation, but showing you exactly how all 6 sound would be a bit boring, so I'll show you 2 of the 6. You'd use the subcardioid in any situation that would require a slightly more directional omni mic, like drum overheads where you want to minimize room sound but preserve the omni quality on the rest of the kit. You can also use it for single sources and isolation boosts where you want to eliminate vocal plosives or lessen proximity effect. There aren't any null points or sensitivity lobes, and it's quite sensitive to feedback, so that means you don't want to use it when you're trying to close mic or reject a sound in a noisy environment or in live sound situations. Similarly, hypercardioid patterns reject aggressively from the sides and are very useful for isolating what's directly in front of them. They have null points at 110 degrees and 250 degrees and have a rear lobe of sensitivity and a rear cone of silence starting from these 2 measurements. They're quite popular in film due to their high directionality, and while it's rare to see a multi-pattern condenser mic without this option, I find them more useful in their dynamic form for miking toms. Now it's time to see how it sounds in the real world. I'm setting up the studio for a pre-production demo session with live drums, live guitar amps, and live vocals all in pretty much the same room. I brought in my friend Martin Joyce to help me out with this, and he'll be playing his Fender American Stratocaster reamped through my Rev Generator 120 and singing into the Avantone set to figure 8. Let's hear how it sounds.
You can sing yourself to sleep with the devil's lullaby. And the best that we can hope for is to live free and survive. And you knew it was coming, so why did you lie? and you can sing yourself to sleep with the devil's lullaby. Broken, you and me are clean, you and me are fire and ice and everything in between, everything in between. You can sing yourself to sleep with the devil's lullaby.
Well, I can safely say I'm pretty impressed with this microphone. It sounds slick, it rejects where it should, the bleed sounds good where there is bleed, and it's a great long-term investment for your studio. In terms of design flaws and drawbacks, there really aren't too many idiot-level things to talk about. The only note that I do have is that it's a bit slow to assemble, because the shock mount allows you to turn the whole assembly in the shock mount itself. You have to screw the mic into the shock mount rather than the shock mount into the mic. Additionally, the weight of the mic and shock mount combined is not inconsequential, so get yourself some sturdy mic stands, or at least put the mic stands that you do have in a sturdy position so it doesn't fall over and damage the mic. As a final side note, you may want to know, in case you were wondering, why it's common to see tube microphones placed upside down. It's a holdover from old school mics where tubes ran much hotter. The heat rising from the tube can cause the diaphragm to warp, changing the sound of the mic over time. Placing the tube above the capsule, though, will help the heat rise and not have to pass through the capsule. Full disclosure, I don't actually know how hot this tube runs, so it's best to proceed with caution, although how much difference this really makes is up for debate. There are some people that say you should never place it vertically, some people say you should always place it hot with the capsule down. It's a whole debate, just use your judgment. If you really are worried about it, just place it the other way. It's not a big deal. I'm very glad I've got this mic as it's been a really amazing help on all the projects that I've had since getting it, and I can't recommend it to you highly enough if you're looking to get into the home studio game. Once again, I'm Jake, I'm the chief engineer and producer here at Sawmill Recordings, and let's get you making music.